Hi folks, hopefully you can hear me. If you can't, just, type in the chat, let me know. Let's get that sound up. Hi folks, hopefully you can hear me. I'm gonna keep an eye on the chat, just let me know uh, if you can hear and see me. Because we should be live now. Oh good, alright. So, first thing, I still haven't figured out how to do a good job with the putting up slides and everything while I'm talking and doing the camera and everything. I really need to spend some time to sit down and figure out OBS. But little thing that I had been working on, I know I mentioned this in, I think, my very first live stream, this whole project I had of trying to collect examples of like all of the major North American cylinder formats. And so I had shown you my mogul cylinder project. Let me just make sure that's actually in frame. Let's get that adjusted down a little bit. There we go. So, I've got my mogul. Then, of course, standard builder's hardware. This is Barrows, which was kind of a funky sub-brand of Yale for a long time. I don't see them very often. I think they were made out in Chicago or St. Louis, somewhere in that area. And then, of course, the little itty-bitty peanut. But I think I had mentioned a while back that there are actually 4 members of the sort of mortise cylinder family. And thanks to Jeff Moss just yesterday, I finally got the last one in the form of this lovely old Corbin master ring cylinder. So, great big tailpiece. So you can see the plug is basically the same size as your standard builder's hardware cylinder, but the cylinder body itself much bigger. And really, I think the only companies I've ever seen really make cylinders in this size, it was never really popular, were Yale with some of their bicentric locks, which are locks that had 2 plugs that worked sort of independently, but they had a gear system on the back where both of them would be able to drive a tailpiece. Very clever. And Corbin for their master ring cylinders. So you can't really see it here, but because that huge tailpiece covers it up. But I do have a couple of the master ring key and knob cylinders. So this is the change key. You can see just the plug turns there. This outer bit does not. And then if I dig out the master key, now you should be able to see that outer ring turn as well. And so the way that works is a little bit funky, but basically it's the same general principle as the way that small format interchangeable core or most interchangeable core cylinders work, where you have 2 separate shear lines and then you have an extra set of pins. So you have your key pin, your master pin, and then a build-up pin that creates the the break in the pin stack for that second shear line. So let me just take a look at the comments real quick. Oh, nice, Jeff. I don't think I've ever seen. Oh, you mean a like this size SFIC housing? I've seen mogul size SFIC housings. ASA makes them, and I think they also rebadge them just like they make they rebadge the mogul cylinders. But I haven't seen a jumbo size, which would be pretty cool, and actually it makes complete sense if there was ever a good cylinder size to put interchangeable core in. It's a pretty good size for it. You get plenty of extra metal in the body. Yeah, Rune, finding these is really pretty tough. The cool thing is that the keyways and the plug and everything are more or less compatible with all the other regular ASA twin products. So as long as you have pins, blanks, and sidebars, you can very easily key one of these up. And if you do ever find them sub-assembled, which is how I got this one, it is usually much, much cheaper than trying to buy one of these complete, because complete finished with the key and everything, like from a distributor, is going to run you. Ooh, you know what? Actually, I think I've got a catalog down here, but it's going to run you good like $300-400 very, very easily. Sometimes like $6. So this was originally just going to be sort of a sidebar in a presentation I was working on specifically about mogul cylinders and detention locks that I was going to try to finish up and present at Lockfest. But unfortunately that did not happen for me this year. So instead, you guys get a live stream. Yeah, Rune, you guys over in, I forget, Rune, you're in, I don't want to get this wrong, but you're in Denmark? Is it? But yeah, that whole area of sort of Scandinavia and Northern Europe, you guys get all the ASA products when they're still all shiny and new. We get them like 20 years later, which is why we're still just barely starting to use twin exclusive. But yeah, we get all your hand-me-downs. That's right. Yeah, so just wanted to kind of show that off. Wanted to thank Jeff Moss particularly because this one included this lovely old-fashioned P&F Corbin key blank. And so while I was doing that, I realized that I actually had a whole pile, well, not a pile, but a handful of other Corbin Russwin or Corbin and Russwin cylinders sitting around. And so I figured I should try to catalog those. So the newest arrival, of course, is that lovely jumbo-size master ring cylinder, which I am absolutely loving right now. But we also have its little brother, a standard builder's hardware size cylinder, and this is a fairly recent one. It's got the Corbin Russwin logo, very modern style and everything, but slightly older style keys. And this is a 59D2 keyway, whereas this one is a 27 keyway. Then, of course, I have my master ring key and knob cylinders. These came with original Russwin keys from back in the day. This is not the original Russwin, but it is older Russwin, certainly. And so probably like mid-century, 60s, 70s, probably into the 80s vintage. They merged with Corbin, Russwin and Corbin merged right around the early 90s, if I remember correctly. But they had sort of cross-pollinated for a long time and at various points been owned by the same people. So I used to have a whole bunch of these, as you can see from the keys, but I've traded or sold a few of them, so I just have the two left. And these are in the N23 keyway, which is apparently a fairly rare one. But they are very cool, and I like they make it a bit easier to demonstrate the general operating concept of the master ring cylinder. I'm not going to bring it over here because it weighs several pounds and there's nothing really special about it, but I do have the actual CK 4200 or 4400 grade 1 keyed doorknob that these go to, and that has just a standard L4 cylinder in it. Pretty boring. And then this lovely thing, I believe I got from winning that little box of Jason's several months ago. This is a older Corbin rim cylinder with period appropriate keys and blanks in the 60 keyway. And then this one is a little bit odd, and if I tried to call up Corbin Russwin today, they would tell me that I'd have to go talk to CCL instead, because it's this whole weird history with Corbin where like different members of the family all started their own lock companies like in the same town, like right across the street from each other or whatever, and then at various points they would merge together and then split up again. So for a while Corbin and CCL, or Corbin Cabinet Lock, were sort of one company, then they weren't, then they were just sort of partners, and so like they had the same logo certainly for a while, but like these days if you want bidding information for Corbin branded padlocks or blanks for them, you have to go talk to CCL instead. But it's kind of cool to see that logo in all of the places that it was. And then the last thing, which I was working on just before I realized that it was time to start the stream, is a modern-ish Corbin Russwin large format interchangeable core cylinder. And I was actually in the process of decoding and repinning it, because I was going over it with my key gauge and realizing that none of the keys are actually cut quite to spec. They're all like a half step off. So before we go any further with this whole mess, I'm going to step over and check the comments real quick and wet my whistle. Yes, Rune, I did win the shitty box, or the less good box. Hey, Steel Pinnings, good to see you. Hey, Lockmania. Hey, King Street Rob. Hey, LPP. Hey, Bill Bacardi, thanks for joining, all of you. Yes, Rune, I got the less good box from Jason. And King Street Rob, N23 is not actually restricted. Um, it is N23 is not really restricted. It's just um, it's not stock. And in fact, the entire N class of keyways these days is considered kind of old. A lot of those older keyway families have been either depreciated or have been listed as only available for existing systems. So if you're a locksmith or an institution, if you're an institution or if you're a locksmith working with an institution that has had a Corbin or Russwin factory designed master key system for like 30, 40, 50 years, and you are on an N family of sectional keyways, they will continue to support that. But you may not be able to order new systems to be built out by them. But you can still find blanks floating around. You can still order them from a lot of distributors, and a lot of retailers will also stock them still. There are some keyway families that are still officially restricted. Things like OH. Actually, if you have a copy of the Corbin Russwin cylinder manual, they actually have a list of the restricted keyways. So they will tell you the ID number or the ID code for the restricted keyway or restricted keyway family, but they won't show you what that looks like. Hey, Jason. Oh, wow. 3N and 7N I don't think I've ever seen. I had these 23N, um, but then again, Jason, you've got a lot of cool old stuff that really none of us know where it came from, but, you know, it's still useful and important. And what was that? Corbin 60. What is he talking? Oh, right. Yeah, this is Corbin 60. Ah, that's what happened. Slipped off that giveaway ring. Ah, fix that later. Yeah, so actually what I was doing when I was preparing for all this was I had gotten out this this Corbin large format interchangeable core. That's in L4 keyway, which is now Corbin's current stock keyway. Or no, L4 and D1 are their stock keyways. So, like, if you just walk into a shop and pull it off the shelf, it's going to have, not that you see a lot of Corbin or Russwin hardware on the shelf in a big box store or even your local hardware store anymore. That's fair, Jason. You know, I will admit that dealing with this sleeve that will just sort of drop out is really annoying, and getting a follower to fit in there cleanly also really annoying, and kind of pinning them up a little bit annoying. So yeah, there's a lot annoying about them, but the one thing I find really cool about them is the math. It is a lot less complicated to calculate what your biddings and what the pin combinations are going to be for one of these Corbin Russwin interchangeable cores compared to pretty much anything else. Yeah, Rune, you can do that, although that would mean that I'd have to get a milling machine. And actually, put this to the side again for a moment. Actually, the thing that I'm hunting for right now is a something similar to what Hudson used to sell as their laser machine. It's the number 339C. They listed in their sort of starter key machine kits, and a lot of the like cheap Chinese companies that sell stuff through Alibaba have copied it. Um, but they are really fantastically versatile machines if you can get them to work. And the main reason I need one right now is a while ago I know I had shown all of you my Fichet 484 in the heavy duty protective housing here. And when I still expected to be going to Lockfest, I was going to be bringing this along because they were going to be playing around with some key casting stuff, and I thought this would be a fun challenge because this key is just gigantic. It's a little over 1/3 of an inch in all dimensions. That is width and height. It's obviously quite a lot more than 1/3 of an inch long. But while I was checking it out, I tried to turn it, and it got stuck. I just very slightly turned, and when I tried to wiggle it, the head of the key came off. Just like that. Oh boy, happened again. So I had briefly managed to repair this with some JB weld, but obviously that is not very strong. And I guess now we're going to do an impromptu how to extract a broken Fichet 484 key. So let me just grab my extractor. But yes, Rune, it is one of those machines is very handy for copying sidebar codes, especially now that aftermarket blank manufacturers are starting to make Schlage Primus Classic blanks, where you have to mill your own sidebar code into them. And that's the wrong thing. That's my impressioning files. And I'll field kit out. So this is probably my favorite extractor. It is a Peterson sort of sawtooth extractor, and I actually cannot find this in their catalog anymore. It came packaged in one of their big sets with the leather fold-out wallet. And so I'm just going to reach in here and try to get this under some part of the key, hook onto it, and okay, we hit a bit of a grip on it for a second. Get that wedged in there and pull. There we go. Got that out a little bit. And now we can take a pair of pliers. The nice thing is, at least, this broke fairly cleanly, and technically this is a tip-stopped key, so if I can get, so I did find someone that had one of these blanks, and it's on its way. In theory, UPS is going to deliver it today, but I don't trust them, so when it does arrive, then all I have to do is either figure out how to hand cut this thing, or find someone that has one of those little sidewinder machines and duplicate this. And then this will be good to go for another quite a long time. I'm going to start playing around with that before I break it again, or any more. So yes, King Street Rub, that was the one. That was the one that I put on Twitter. Bill Bacardi, I did find someone that has one of the blanks. It's on its way. Of course, if I try to cut it and screw it up, I may have to come to you to try to find another. And there are kind of two different versions of it. Let me pull out the Ilco blank directory real quick. See if I can find it. Yeah, so this one is what Ilco lists as the FCT45, which would be the Silco FT500. There's another one that's like the FCT46 or something, which has a slight difference in the sort of shoulder and neck area. So if you do have any of those FCT45s, I may be in the market. Just get that put away. Yeah, steel pinnings. All of them sort of come pre-cut. Because there are certain areas where the key is always going to need to be really deeply cut, and so they'll sort of pre-cut that at the factory. But it would be like a really regular high-low pattern, and then to make the actual working key, you have to cut it to match. And of course, I have no idea how to even go about getting replacement levers for that thing. So I can't change the combination aside from just swapping the position of some of the levers in there. Yeah, Runa, there's a few people. I think Lockmasters also sells stuff for casting keys to make copies. And that's generally not something that a locksmith needs to do, but I do a fair amount of work with penetration testers and other types of security people, and they often have a use for it, either as a demonstration of a potential threat, or because they are simulating threats, or sometimes very, very occasionally, but as far as I know, I don't work with any of the types of people that are actual threats. Right, so let's check the time real quick. Okay, so we've got a little more than 20 minutes to go still. So what I had been trying to get at earlier was this large format interchangeable core, and having a copy of the Corbin Russwin cylinder manual is a really useful thing. Obviously, if you work on Corbin Russwin products a lot, very, very helpful. But even if you don't, there they have a lot of material in here that explains the concepts of master keying, keyway identification, depth systems, a whole lot of company history, multiplex and simplex keyway or sectional keyway system design, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. But what I was working on was decoding and repinning this interchangeable core system. And so I had just about gotten to the point where all I needed to do, because I had figured out what the original pinning array was, so I just needed to calculate the last of the biddings for the keys. So basically the way that Corbin Russwin math works is that for their interchangeable core systems, usually chambers 2, 3, 4, and 5 are going to be the control chambers, and then 1 and 6 are just left alone. Sargent just uses the two middle, and if you're dealing with Corbin Emhart or Corbin High Security, they use just 2 and 3. But here we have to deal with all 4. And the way their math works is that the build-up pins, instead of having a number just like the master pins and the key pins, they actually have a modifier. So -1, +1, -2, +2. So let me see if I can quickly find. So you'll see with the build-up pins here, you have 0, where that's no change in the cut, -1, where that's one cut shallower, +1, one cut deeper, and so on up to -4 or +5, at least in System 70, because they only have 6 cuts on it. And so the way the math works is you have the plug total, which is the key pin plus the master pin. So in this case, there's no master pin, so it's just 4. So let's see. That is going to be a 3, and that is going to be a 5, because there's no master pin in the rearmost chamber. There's a 1 pin, so that could be a 3 or a 4, doesn't matter. In chamber number 2, we have a number 4 key pin and no master pin, and then a -1 build-up pin. So the math for that is going to be 4 minus 1 is going to be 3. Number 3 key pin, number 3 master pin is going to be a 6. So then we subtract 2 from 6, and we get 4. Fourth chamber, 2 and a 3, so 5 minus 3 is going to be a 2. And a 4 and a 1 is 5 minus 3, also going to be a 2. So if we look at what our original control key was, 4, 3, 4, 2, 2, 5. So except for that first chamber where we can do either the master or the change key. And really, if you're going to do if you're going to master the first and last chambers, your change key should use the same cuts as your master key, so that it will work across the entire system, not just on things that use that that specific change key cut. And usually your master key is going to be well, your master key can vary between whether it's built up using the master pins or the key pins. But in this case, I'm trying to keep it relatively simple. And so I'm going to use the key pins for the master key, then the key pins plus the master pins for the change key. And so now we should have the biddings for all of our keys. I already have the master key and control key cut, and so I just need to cut the change key. And then we are going to pin up that cylinder. And I hope I'm not... Yes, Rob, that's right. I should be pushing the website that I help run, which is lockreference.com, because we do have worksheets to help simplify most of this. And if we don't have one yet for a particular system that you work with, let us know or remind us that we should do that, and we'll probably get one out pretty quick. Yes, Corbin Russwin, the cylinder manual just has an amazing amount of history there. And just bear with me while I set up my blitz here. What are we doing? We're doing Corbin Russwin, System 70, L class. DHL series, System 70, yes. Card CX6A. Got jaw A in there. And then let's bring you over here. Apologize, the lighting over here is not that great, but we're going to do the best we can. So last thing is we're just going to need to change the cutting wheel, because System 70 uses a 90-degree angle. So we need the 90-degree wheel. There we go. And should be all set up there. Last thing we need to do is get our key. Get that set up in the jaw. Make sure that's nice and tight. And make sure that we know what bitting we're going to cut. Which we just established was 446555. Right? Okay. And now, if you've got headphones on, you're probably going to want to turn the sound down. Ah. There we go. So now, in theory, when we put this lock back together, all three of these keys should do their thing. And now, the last bit is the big monster pin kit. This is, I think, the only pin kit that I'm aware of that is even larger than Lab's universal 0.003 step kit, and actually that's what this is sitting on top of. You can see it's a bit wider. So we're going to pull it out. And unusually, this thing does not have like a chart telling you the depths of all of these things, because this covers all of Corbin Russwin's system, so it actually comes with a poster that's like 3 feet long, and it's double-sided, so you flip it over to show you the pinning charts for all of these things. It does have this lovely little bit of foam to cover up the really small master pins over here. Right, so let's get going with pinning this thing up. First step is going to be getting the plug set up. And of course we are going to need a follower. So first things first, we're going to use the chart from the Corbin Russwin cylinder manual, and we need a number 3 bottom pin, which is going to be a 217. I'm already lost. There it is, 217. Number 4, which is going to be a 245, way up here. Then another 217. A number 2, which is going to be a 189. Not to be confused with the 186, of course. Another 4, which is going to be 245. And 6 chamber is going to be a 273. Right there. So let's check first our change key. Okay, obviously we're going to need master pins in some of those positions. And our master key, everything lines up nice and neat. So we're going to leave the change key in there. And we need a number 1 master pin, which is going to be a 028, smallest thing they have here. You have to be really careful when you're using these, because they will just fall out at the drop of a hat and you will never see them again. Then there's a number 3 master pin, which is a 0.084 right here. And another 0.84 right there. And then in the 5th chamber, another number 1 master pin. Make sure we actually only pick up 1. And that looks about right. So that is the plug sorted out. So then all we need to deal with, and this is the really annoying part here, is we're going to have to try to load this up. Get some extra light here. Going to have to try to load this up. And the first few are going to be very tricky because this, until we have at least one chamber filled up in there, this sleeve is going to try to wobble around on us. Right, so let's get some interchangeable core springs out. Drop those. Separate. Fine. Even the anti-tangle springs are tangled. There we go. So there we go. It's 2 more, and so just carefully load all these springs in there. The ones in the control chambers need a bit of extra coaxing. Right. And the last thing is I should have double checked what the top springs are supposed to be. So there is a formula for that, I'm sure. Actually, they have a handy little reference chart up here. And the top pin should match the control cut. Good to know. So 3, 4, 2, 2. Yep. Okay, so first we're going to do the non-control chamber at the back, which is going to be a 0.247 top pin or driver pin. So get that in there and move on to the first control chamber, where is going to be a number 2 cut, so a 0.163. Bear with me one sec, folks. Sorry folks, so that loud machinery started up again, but I'm going to try to power through this for our last few minutes. So we have, what is it, a 163 top pin. We have another 163. Then we should have a 107. Very, very small. And a 135. And last one is going to be a 247 again. And that should do it. So we're going to slide this back together, real careful. Let it lock back up. Get that C-clip back on. And let's check our keys. Change key. A little stiff, but turns nicely. Come on. Doesn't want to come out. Master key. Also turns nicely. And finally the control key. Does not quite want to work. So I'm going to recut this real quick to make sure that it's right. I've already turned down the volume for everyone, so hopefully won't be a big shock. Let's make sure all these cuts are true. And I have obviously screwed up my math somehow, because the control key is not working. So obviously I've got to work on that. And now, since it is just past 4 o'clock, I'm going to just catch up with the comments real quick, and then I'll say have a nice weekend. Yeah, Fred, sorry about that. I had someone come in and some heavy machinery start up, so I had the volume dropped. I had it mute. I had the microphone muted for a bit, and then I adjusted the mic down when I came back to try to get cut off some of that heavy equipment. Hey, lockpicking gal. Glad you managed to get here, at least for the last little bit. Yeah, that's right, Jason. One of the doodads is not doodadding properly. So I got to figure out where I went wrong with that, and then once I have, I got to rebuild this again. So I'm going to go deal with that. Everyone else, you should go check out Helpful Lockpicker and hopefully LPP if he hasn't done his public stream yet. LPP, if you're still on, just let people know what time they should check out your channel. But otherwise, thank you all again for coming and sticking with me for what has been at least on a technology end, a much less exciting stream. And thank you all for being here with me time after time, despite all of my screw-ups. So with that, thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and until next time, have fun and happy picking, everyone.